thought find out and have a conversation explore the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's a leader scholar, executive coach, and a former hospice chaplain who helps leaders embrace their future by remembering their mortality. None other than Mr. Seth Clark.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome, Mr. Seth on our podcast. And can you please introduce me more about yourself that I
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I used to be a hospice chaplain, and when I was doing that, I realized that life is short. Obviously, most of us know that, but
miss?
can that be a clarifying tool for our lives? Can we look at that last transition and think about what we want to do with all the transitions in between? And I decided yes. So I'm someone who grew up in the United States. I live in California now, but I grew up in Minnesota, where right now in January it's very cold, a lot warmer here. I'm grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, the first moment of death that I realized was, when my grandma passed away. I was about 8 years old, same as my son is now, 8 years old. And my grandma passed away. And before she died, there were a few days between the stroke and her death where I was, not able to see her, but I knew she was dying. And so there I am in the backyard on the swing set, a place that's supposed to be fun for an 8-year old. But I'm starting to think about what it means to live, what it means to die. And as I've gotten older, other people in my life have died, friends, family, and that goes for all of us. The older we get, the more that we see death around us, and that is coming for us. It's not just grandparents, it's parents, and then eventually it's friends our age, and then eventually, well, it's us. So, what do we want to do in the meantime? So, for me, I studied a lot. I have too many degrees, one of which is a doctor of ministry in religion and culture. So I've thought a lot about culture. I've done a lot around multicultural and cross-cultural and cross-border work, but also ministry. I've done a lot of ministry. I'm an ordained Baptist pastor. But now that I'm looking more in my PhD program at leadership, I'm also thinking about how to translate that into the business world, the nonprofit world, and how to think about this life, this one life we have, and how death can and maybe should clarify what we have going on, and maybe even can help people who have already gone through loss or are going through loss to think more clearly about what is ahead for them and how they can grieve that loss but keep moving forward.
Yes, move forward, people, not backward.
Yes.
Please. And thank
Hmm.
you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Mr. Seth, thank you. And today, let's talk about mortality awareness in life and leadership. So tell us, Mr. Saf, the awakening. Was there a specific moment of personal loss, or close or diagnosis that served as your profound wake up call to mortality? Or it has been a more gradual philosophical awareness?
Yeah, I think for me it has been more gradual, but I think there was two things that happened around the same time for me that really drew me in more, not just to this mortality thing as a mental exercise, but something that is, part of the fabric of life itself. And the first is COVID, of course. 6 years ago, we were wondering what this virus was on the other side of the world for most of us. And then it came to our shores and it locked our doors. And there was lots of fear, there was lots of reaction. And a lot of that, in the middle of it all, people were acting, some like everyone was going to die, the terror around death. Others like, oh, there was no way they could die. And so that denial of death, right? And we saw that all around us, right? And
Yes.
yeah. And then for me, about a year into the COVID pandemic, I I started doing the hospice chaplaincy, right? And so with all the PPE on, the masks, all of it, regular testing, would go into the homes of and the skilled nursing facilities, all this, of people who were dying. They were dying, right? COVID or
Mm-hmm.
otherwise. They were not going to make it probably more than 6 months. And so to sit with them, to talk with them, to see the clarifying force that death could have if you let it. Some people wouldn't. I remember this one person in particular. She was um, very sick, terminally ill, and she decided that she didn't want to be on hospice anymore. She wanted to go out on her own. She had already moved out of her apartment. She was already in skilled nursing, but she didn't want to come to terms with her death, and so she ended up on the streets with no help at all. And I don't know what happened to her, but it's likely she died in an emergency room, you know. And others, some were more accepting and the others were not. And the people who were more accepting, right, what did they have? They had more clarity, they had more peace, they had people around them who also, were grieving. It was sad, it was not easy, but they had people around them who were able to comfort them. And I think about our lives, hopefully for many of us, death is far, far away still, but if those things matter to them at the end, what matters to us most now? And hopefully, hopefully we do want to do big things in the world, but not at the expense of what our ultimate values are.
Big things, people, because life is too short. We need to build our legacy. The daily reminder, Mr. Seth, the memento mori. Do you have a personal ritual or conscious thought that brings this awareness into your daily life? What from does it take?
Yeah. So memento mori is this ancient idea. It comes from Latin, right? It means
Yeah.
remember that you will die. Remember that
Mhm.
you will die. And so I think there's a practice that I have where it's, I look forward to that death. Not that I look forward to it in terms of, oh, I'm so excited about it, but I see it as a reality that is. And sometimes that comes up in prayer, sometimes in meditation, sometimes just in thoughts throughout the day. But when those thoughts come and that contemplation of death comes, not to recoil and react, right, but just to be with whatever comes up, right? So I talk sometimes about befriending your death. Well, and that's a relationship. What does it mean to befriend your death? What does it mean to befriend anybody, right? Anything. It means to get curious, right, and to be open and accepting, right? Death's going to come for us whether or not we accept it. So we may as well have this posture of openness, not so that we die faster, but so that we can have a death that we want to have, right? One that is generous beyond ourselves, for the people around us, for those who come after us, who remain after us. And so, one thing, I do sometimes, not always, but I do sometimes is I breathe in, and I recall that all die, and then I breathe out, and I'm thankful for life, and I breathe in, and I am reminded that I will die, not just all, but I will die, and then I breathe out, and then I'm thankful for breath, for life, and for breath, because those aren't gone yet, you know. So those are some kinds of ways that I think about death, and not to glamorize it, right? I'm not some sort of nihilist. I'm not some sort of death cultist or anything, but there's a long tradition both in the East and the West that if you think upon your death, you're thinking upon that which is, most universal, and therefore you're thinking about something that is incredibly important.
Hmm. Interesting, Mr. South. Interesting indeed. So, the gift of finitude, we often see death as the ultimate limit. How has
Mm.
embracing your finitude paradoxically become a source of clarity, energy, or freedom in your personal life? What did help you to stop doing, start prioritizing?
Yeah. So we don't always like finitude. We don't always like limits, right? But I haven't run in a little while because I've a foot injury, right? So I used to
Mm.
run more. Um, right. So I have more limits than I used to on my running. I used to be able to run for 10 miles, and it was effort, but I could do it easily. If I, put on my shoes and went out today, I wouldn't be able to do that. Similarly with life and death, I don't know what my limit of my life is, but I know it's not forever. Um, but if I have this practice of remembering, then I'll know how far I can push or not, like with running. And so you asked about a particular example. I think for me, one thing that comes up is sometimes these decisions in life, they feel really big. Should I do this or that? Should I do this project or that project? Should I take this job or that job? Should I hire this person or that person, right? All kinds of decisions that we can make, and there can be anxiety over it, right? But when
Yes.
we remember that every breath is a gift, and not the next breath, not even the next breath is a promise. That helps us remember that we get to choose how to be in the world. It's not like it's somehow foisted on us necessarily. We get to choose how to be in the world, right? If we can choose what to do in terms of our death, like how we respond to the death, how we orient ourselves around our deaths, we can certainly choose to be more agentic, to be more in control over how we act towards all of these other decisions that otherwise can be very overwhelming. And even still, there can be overwhelming, but it puts it into perspective, right? Like this decision, this situation, this predicament, we have the choice to do what we want to do, within our limits, of course, um, in regards to that situation, right? But even being in that situation is a gift that it was not guaranteed. And for the billions and billions of people who have come before us, they don't have that choice anymore, right? Depending on your philosophy or religion or whatever else, but like if we just assume that you live once, the people who came before it, well, they don't get to again. And even if there is some sort of reincarnation or afterlife, which I have beliefs about, of course, um, well, this is my one shot for this shot. You know,
Hmm.
yeah, and
The
it's not over
one
yet.
shot.
Yeah,
The one shot indeed, and seize your day, people. As we said, life is too short. So let's talk about the leadership lens leading from Vienna's endpoint.
yeah,
The eulogy test. A classic thought of experiment is the project forward to your own eulogy. How do you use a perspective to evaluate leadership decisions today? What kind of leader does it compel you to be?
yeah. Right. So sometimes I ask people to write their own obituary or, like you say, your own eulogy. What does that look like? What do you want people to remember you for? Right. And if that's kind of the overarching principle, what do you want to be acting like? I mean, if you want to be remembered as a person of integrity, well, then you better be honest in your relationships. If you want to be remembered as a person who was a go getter, well, then you better get off the couch and do something, right? If you want to be remembered as a person who loved the world beyond just the organization, well, you better start volunteering or giving away generously. If you want to be remembered as a person who loved their family, well, you better, go home and hang out with your wife or your husband or your kids or whoever it is that you consider family. You are the one who gets to decide with whatever limits are on you, right? But you get to decide what it is that you're going to be like, what kind of leader you're going to be like, what kind of follower you're going to be like. You get to decide what that is. And so for me, that means not working all the time but spending time with my family. For me, it means not always pursuing another job or another project or another coaching client, but spending some time on research and study to advance the world of knowledge as well. And it means also relaxing, right? Because I'm still human and I still want this life to be one that isn't work all the time. So relaxing, going away, experiencing the wonders of nature, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yes, relaxing. People relax. Take a deep breath. The legacy increments. Legacy is often seen as the final monument. How do you break it down into a daily, weekly, or quarterly behaviors, conversations, and decisions that become the legacy?
Yeah. Well, everyone can do this differently, right? But when I think about it, this legacy is kind of the overarching memory, and you probably aren't going to be remembered forever, right? Like there's people from 500 years ago, we don't remember most of their names, much less 5,000 or 50,000 years ago. So you won't be remembered forever. I won't be either. And that's okay, just it's okay to let that go. But the legacy is for the people who come after us or who remain after we're gone. How do we want to impact those people now and into the future after we're gone? And so that's big stuff, right? But every person can do it on their own terms, hopefully, in terms of what values they hold and how they live into those. And so day by day, what you could do if you wanted is have a checklist. Okay, today I want to be a person who let's say you're a person who wants to have a good work ethic, right? Today I want to be a person who works hard. Okay, you remind yourself of that in the morning. At night, today was I a person who worked hard? Well, yes, mostly, or no, or something in between, and you can check yourself on that. You're the one who has those values. You're the one who's creating your own legacy. Or if it's quarter by quarter, right? You expand outward. I want to be someone who is valuable to the world by producing, let's say producing a product that makes lots of money or having a service that makes lots of money. Well, that's pretty easy. Are you being profitable or not? Okay. And so, what are your quarterly numbers there? But hopefully it goes even a little deeper than that. Like, why are you wanting to make a product? Why are you wanting to have a service that is so profitable? Hopefully it's to make some sort of impact in the world beyond, the good thing of making a decent wage, making a decent amount of money, making profit, right? Um, what goes beneath that in terms of something that maybe is a little bit harder to define, a little bit harder to track or measure. And so that's where it's a little bit more subtle in terms of just that daily practice of what you think, what you feel, what you want. What are the forces acting on you in an unconscious way or not, and just getting to know yourself better, to get to know your values better, so that you can live according to those values, um, and get over those losses that come in a way that projects towards that legacy that you want.
Mr. Seth, let's talk about the psychology, safety, and mortality. As its core, psychological safety is about the freedom to take a rest without fear of humiliation or punishment. Small death, ego, or status. How does acknowledging larger mortality helps create this safety?
Yeah. Well, so this mortality awareness stuff, that it I wouldn't offer it to someone who's experiencing a very fragile ego, right? So if someone has just gone through a tragic event, right, and they're suffering from trauma from that, that this is not the time to talk about mortality awareness necessarily, right? You don't just say, "Oh, well, you're going to die, so this is better than that," right? That would be callous. But this is more, this is why I work with high impact leaders. They probably have pretty strong egos, right? Where a little bit of nudging the ego and chipping away at it, to remind the ego that it's not permanent, can help the ego become even more, I guess we could call it resilient, right? And so psychological safety is important, right? And these little losses that happen, or even big losses that happen along the way, they can make our ego feel more fragile, right? And so one thing that mortality awareness does with the ego that's generally strong but struggling is, for that kind of person, remembering the greater path, the greater trajectory of life, and how, death is coming, and that can be clarifying, they face this loss that they're going through now, but it's not the last loss. It's not the final loss of life. That can help kind of reshape the ego in a way that is more true to how life actually is. It's not this statue that is really strong but rigid, and so somehow could shatter. Instead, it's something that's not quite like a statue, but more like a tree that can move in the wind, a little bit more like that. So I think psychological safety, as I see it, is less like that strong statue that in an earthquake is going to fall over, but more like that tree that if there's an earthquake or even a windstorm, will stand a little bit longer.
Mr. Seth, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in a sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in sixth season, two comedy 101 in its third season, and food 101 in its sixth season too. Geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101, our fifth season, science 101, science 101, sex 101, fourth season, trivia 101, law 101, love letters, or no, mental health, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and Bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Seth, tell us the final invitations. If you could leave our listeners with one simple, actionable invitation to bring thoughts of mortality awareness in their week to improve their life or leadership, what would it be?
Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I think one thing would be just to allow yourself to breathe as you think about death or maybe something else difficult that's going on or is about to go on in your life. Allow yourself to breathe with that thing in mind. Allow yourself to feel the feelings that are coming up, whether it's fear or rage or disgust or sadness, whatever it is. And that's how you start befriending that difficult thing, whether it's death, some other sort of loss, some other sort of change that's tough. Just breathe it in, feel the feelings, and move forward, knowing that you can do this.
You can do this for sure. So, Mr. Seth, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you want to promote on Abstract Essay?
Yeah, thank you. I have a book coming out by the end of the year. It's called Lead Like You Will Die. And check out my LinkedIn right there. And then you can also go, it's under construction right now, but once it's up, lifedeathandleadership.com, where I have courses and there is leadership coaching.
Leadership coaching indeed. So, Mr. Seth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Likewise, please do come over if your book is published. Come over on my book 101 review, abstract essay, and all of my podcasts if you want to participate and promote the book itself.
All right. I'll see you over there when it's out.
Definitely. So, more to come, people. See you soon.